What is happening, guys? Pray Mantas back with you again with another video. So I've been getting quite a few questions lately on people asking me for advice on what's the difference between training for mass and training for definition, and a lot of people seem to be quite confused about the concept of training for mass and training for definition. So let's begin with training for mass. So training for mass, and what are the differences between training for mass and training for definition? Well, training for mass involves lifting a lot of weights. Training for mass involves a lot of calorie consumption. People that are training for mass tend to consume a lot of calories because you obviously need those calories to push heavy weights and in order to recover yourself, because your body uses calories to recover and obviously for energy purposes. So most of those calories usually come from carbohydrates and fats. Protein usually stays the same, but nutritional side of training I'm gonna leave probably for another video. Today I just want to touch the training aspect. So like I said, training for mass involves a lot of heavy weights, and this is what I've been doing so far. And the athletes that I've been working with, the people I've been working out with, they all usually train with heavy weights when they're training for mass because obviously heavy weights allow your muscles to get dense. Pushing heavy weights allows more resistance, and obviously it allows your muscle fibers to be torn on the greater amount rather than lifting lighter weights, which is easily adaptive to your body. One of those things is obviously training with heavy weights, and the second thing in training for mass is more strength training is usually involved. So obviously because people push heavy weights, so you will gain strength whilst you're training for mass, and it's a natural cause obviously, because you should be aiming for getting stronger and you also should be aiming for getting bigger at the same time, because getting bigger is going to be a byproduct of your strength training slash mass training that's going to be involved. So like I said, these two things are the staple. Training with heavy weights and more strength training involved will result in a great amount of muscle mass gains. So another thing that I would like to talk about training for mass is more rest involved. So obviously you're gonna have to recover enough in between your workouts, because heavy weights and heavy workouts are really demanding. Therefore your body needs appropriate time and adequate time to recover itself. So you might need some more rest days because of the demands of strength and obviously demands of your central nervous system. Your body will gonna have to be in a constant recovery phase. So even the timings and the rest periods between your sets will probably gonna be longer, since heavy weights are really demanding and heavier reps, especially heavy sets. Your rest periods in between your sets might increase, but you shouldn't actually force it, because you still should keep your workouts quite intense. So rest as long as you need. Don't force yourself on resting too much, because obviously eventually you're gonna lose that intensity, and this is what you have to avoid in the first place. But by pushing heavy weights, I don't mean rocking the weight and losing the form completely. No way. I mean, I've already touched the training aspects in general. Like, you should be training in as good form as you can, and obviously at the same time not rocking the weights, performing the exercises in the best form you can. Obviously when you try and push heavier weights, you might lose a little bit of form, and that's completely okay as long as you're aware of it and as long as you complete the exercises, and especially the negative, the eccentric movements in a proper form. You're gonna be good. So training for mass is usually the period for a lot of athletes when they're hitting their personal bests, because it's probably the perfect time when you're training in off season. I'm not actually a big believer in off season in the first place, because I believe in looking good all year round. But obviously during off season and the periods when you're training for mass, you will gain some fat, and that's completely okay as long as you're aware of it, and as long as you don't lose yourself on your diet and you don't start eating crap constantly. You always have to stick with healthy alternatives, healthy foods, because quality foods will result in quality mass. A lot of athletes that I know are using 5 sets of 5 method, which is an optimal way of gaining strength and mass at the same time. It's more of a strength type of program, but it's really suitable for people that are starting to weightlift and people that are actually want to gain muscle size and gain strength, 5 sets of 5 is usually the way to go. This is what I've been doing in my off season as well, although I don't really believe in off season like I said before. But I did train 5 sets of 5 and I gained significant results from it, and this is why I would highly recommend it to you guys. 5 sets of 5, really good way of gaining size and strength at the same time. The last thing that I would like to talk about in training for mass is doing less cardio. Obviously you're gonna have to preserve those calories for muscle gains and your strength gains. Naturally your cardio will have to be reduced to a lower amount, because cardio just burns those calories that you're trying to preserve on your body's recovery, and you're trying to preserve on your muscle mass gains as well. But at the same time, cardio comes with its own benefits. So I'm not saying ditch cardio completely. I'm still saying you should still do cardio, but you should not make it your primary focus, and you should not focus on cardio whilst you're building mass and strength. So what I personally do, I still do cardio too, sometimes 3 times a week. It really depends on my mood as well, but don't try and focus on cardio every day, because let's admit it guys, cardio is for me personally, I freaking hate cardio, man. Cardio is just something that I would avoid if I had a chance, but obviously I know how my body responds and I know how my body works, so cardio helps me to get lean. But when getting lean is not my priority, I don't do cardio as much. So that was just one side of training for mass. Now we're gonna be talking about training for definition. So training for definition, and what I've actually found out from a lot of people out there, a lot of people tend to make a major mistake on training for definition, and the mistake is lowering the weights. You should avoid that in the first place, guys. Don't lower your weights, because you're gonna have a higher chance of having your muscles shrink as well, because light weights are not as demanding in terms of strength, so your body will naturally adapt to that lighter weight, and your muscles will naturally shrink, because the muscle strength and size will not be as demanding in it anymore. So what I would suggest you guys to do is still try and train with heavy weights. I mean, at the end of the day, the mindset that I usually have is I maintain my muscle mass in the same way I built it, so I still train my muscles and I still train my body with heavy weights, although your working weights might drop, and this is a natural cause, because when you're getting lean, when you're training for definition, obviously you're eating less calories, especially you reduce most of your calories from carbohydrates, depending on different diets obviously, but your calories at the end of the day are reduced whilst you're training on definition. You should actually expect your weights to drop, but don't force it, because I wouldn't really force lowering the weights, because when you're gonna lower the weights, you're gonna lose that density and that fullness of the muscle. It's freaking hard to build muscle in the first place, so you might as well carry on lifting heavy weights and keeping that density as much as you can. Another thing that I would like to talk about training for definition is you can involve more intensity, and this is what you should be prioritizing on as well, because more intense workouts obviously will elevate your heart rate to a higher rate. It will make you burn fat easier, because obviously the higher heart rate, the more demands for calories. So I would suggest involving supersets and drop sets. And what supersets are is basically a type of training where you train one body part and you finish the exercise or finish your set, and then you go to another exercise straight away. You can either train the same muscle group or the opposite muscle group. So basically you do the bench press and then you go straight to pull-ups, or you do bench press and then you go straight to flies, or something like that. You can always switch it around and increase your intensity, and this is what actually makes your workouts more exciting. It makes your workouts more creative, and it doesn't allow your body to actually adapt to the workouts. Supersets are a great way to increase the intensity, and the other way of increasing it might be drop sets. So it's basically completing the set with your working weight and then dropping the weights within about 20 or 30%. So let's say I'm doing dumbbell flies with 15 kilos, and then I'm gonna drop the weights to about 12.5 or 10 kilos, and then complete another set for about 8 to 10 reps. Or you can choose to do triple or quadruple sets, so dropping the weight lower and even lower until complete muscle failure. So that's another good way of increasing the intensity. Obviously, it's a shocking principle which Arnold was talking about in his book, Championship for Modern Bodybuilding. If you guys haven't read that book, I would highly recommend. He speaks a lot about training in that book, and this is the book that I read quite a while ago, and these are all the tips that I'm using to this day in order to build my own body. So another thing that I would like to talk about in training for definition is more cardio, and this is literally the opposite for training for mass. Whilst training for mass involves less cardio, so training for definition, obviously you need to burn those excess calories, so you need to push your body into a greater caloric deficit. So if you train intensively, and obviously with heavy weights are really caloric demanding, so you will burn a lot of calories by training with heavy weights. And if you involve supersets and drop sets, that's gonna even allow your body to push itself into a greater caloric deficit due to demands of calories. And obviously cardio is just an icing on the cake. Some people do and some people don't do cardio. I personally do cardio because it works for me, keeps my heart healthy at the same time, and increases my fitness levels. So it's not just for body looks. At the end of the day, it's more of a health state, because fitness is all about health and healthy lifestyle for me. So I would highly recommend doing cardio. You can start off with 3 to 4 times a week. It's really up to you, and then increase it gradually, because if you start your cutting period or getting shredded period, if you will, and if you start cardio with 6 times a week, eventually it's gonna become more and more monotonous, and it's gonna just repel you from doing cardio. So you increase your cardio gradually. Start small with like three times a week, and then every week add 1 extra day until you end up doing cardio 5, 6, or even 7 times a week, depending on your schedule and depending on your workout routine. So that's pretty much it, guys. This is what I wanted to touch on the subject for training for mass and definition. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.